We built our Wharram Tiki 38 BoraBora, inspired by traditional Polynesian double canoes. Flush deck, outer galley, and starting out with no roof. Our ambitious plan entails disassembling the little ship, packing her into a container, and shipping her across oceans on a cargo ship, all the way to Tahiti in French Polynesia. Once in Tahiti, we will reassemble her, raise the mast, stock up on food and water, and sail towards new and exciting adventures in what is considered to be one of the best places in the world for sailing. A long and difficult sales process lies behind us, and we have bid farewell to our beloved little ship, BoraBora. Selling a project like BoraBora had attracted many dreamers, not all of whom were suitable buyers. Despite a near sale that fell through at the last minute, we were fortunate to be friends with a young local couple who showed true interest. With their experience in sailing and boat repairs using epoxy and plywood, we struck a deal, and BoraBora found her way back to the peaceful waters of Bahrain Bay in Hawaii. We were mentally exhausted and decided to take a holiday. Gazing into each other's eyes, we instantly agreed on the same answer: Ilha Da Culatra, the little sand island by the Algarve coast in southern Portugal. We had been to Ilha Da Culatra years ago with our gaff-rigged wooden boat Dvina and had fallen in love immediately. We had just finished a 3-day regatta down the Portuguese coast. Martha Primrose with Captain Ashley Butler and his family crew won by half an hour when passing the beautiful lighthouse on the island. We had let the anchor go, entered the dinghy and rowed towards the beach to stretch our legs after 3 days on board. We were ready to discover the island. This early morning, years later, I sip my tea while gazing outward. I spot a group of ladies slowly walking towards the sandbank, each carrying a bucket and a shovel ready to dig for clams. They bend down simultaneously, assuming what looks like a good yoga downward-facing dog position, and begin scraping the sand, carefully gathering the clams as their buckets gradually fill. I instantly decide that I want to go and pick clams as well. So I quickly search the kitchen area and find a colander and a small bucket. Not finding any shovels in the kitchen drawer, I opt for a spoon and then run down the stairs. Though far from being a professional clam digger, I still managed to find quite a few small, nice-looking clams. Laferic spots me standing bent over at the beach, and as he approaches, I see a hint of laughter in his eyes. "Are you doing your morning yoga exercise?" he jests. I snap back in an irritated tone. "I'm organizing dinner." With a rather sore back, I straighten up and we both gaze toward the lagoon. The lagoon with its boats and people that had led to our somewhat bonkers project a decade ago. We had left our dinghy in the chaotic beach, full of fishing boats in all sizes and conditions. Equipment used and not used, probably for years. Old washing machines and loads of plastic fishing net floats. We started collecting the colorful net floats straight away and knew we would find use for the little lovely objects. When seeing several masts in the horizon in what seemed to be a rather big lagoon, we quickly headed in that direction, never bored of seeing another boat and in the never-ending hope of meeting interesting sailors. The lagoon was filled up with all kinds of boats, but mostly catamarans and trimarans, in different shapes, colors, sizes, and not to forget conditions. Some boats definitely had people on board, some looked shut down and left, and some looked like this was their very last harbor, their graveyard. As it was low tide, we could see the ground covered in long, dirty ropes, anchors, and rusty motors used as moorings. I noticed what looked like a boat almost covered in bushes. A rather strange-looking vessel, small, but with a huge cabin built on the top, almost looking like a big lifeboat. It was either pulled into the bushes or the bushes had grown around it. Next to it was this strange-looking building, very colorful and what seemed more like a piece of art. For me, it actually looked like a small castle a child and a childish grown-up like me would have loved to build. When I saw an elderly man sweeping the sand outside, we walked over and greeted him and hoped he was friendly and ready for a chat. I quickly told him we were on the traditional gaff-rigged black boat in the bay, and a smile broke up in his wrinkled face. Jan was German and came by sail all the way from Germany in his 16-feet boat 25 years prior. At that time, his little vessel was open to all weather conditions. He later built the big cabin to get more comfortable inside his tiny boat. Slowly, Jan had started building what turned out to be his home and his castle. He had used all possible items, big and small, that he found on the beach, built and painted, and enjoyed the slow life on the island, helping out a bit here and there, and this way he had managed to make a living. And my favorite? This windmill made out of a sea turtle. With the tide at its lowest, we could walk across the lagoon and towards a big black catamaran that had caught our attention. From distance, she looked rather simply built, and getting closer, we realized she was simply built. Long, roughly cut out planks made up the hulls, one hull maybe as much as 3 meters longer than the other. The mast and boom all crooked. She truly looked made by hand, in a way almost carved out. She was big, maybe close to 70 feet. When spotting a green hat, black sunglasses on a small head, we hoisted the Portuguese greeting "Boa tarde," not knowing where he was from. It turned out he was a rather tall man, looking short from the sandbank where we were standing. Again, I quickly made the point of us being from the black gaff-rigged traditional boat, and as happened with Jan across the lagoon, a smile broke up in his sunburned face. He invited us on board. Hans was, as Jan, from Germany. This was the third boat he had built in Africa. Hans told us that he hated it when a building process took a long time. 4 or 5 months was plenty enough. Plenty enough. We were rather impressed by the short time it had taken building the huge boat, but even more impressed by the charm of the boat and the simplicity. It looked like it was almost sewn and lashed together. We asked Hans for the reason for one hull being so much longer than the other, and he replied, the tree was longer. Hans gave us a tour outside and inside his catamaran, and it was as simple down below as it was on deck. Bunk beds and a long table, all built with simplicity. Food and water stored in 5-liter bottles and big boxes. I never saw a toilet. Maybe they just used the bucket. I don't know. Was it this simplicity that had occupied Leif Erik's thoughts from November of that year until a few months later, when weather-bound for almost a week in Cape Verde, the idea struck him? Build a simple boat, build it quickly, and send it to paradise? Now, many years later, as we stroll toward the lagoon on a lovely morning, the last day of March, there isn't a single boat in sight. Not one. A fence constructed of poles and a floating dock serves to deter any boats from entering the lagoon. The area has become a nature reserve area. The once chaotic waters have transformed into a scene of tranquility and clarity. Clear and clean waters, sand, green bushes under a blue sky. It's a sight of unparalleled beauty. Yet there's a tinge of sadness lingering in the air. As we reluctantly depart the lagoon and make our way back to our charming accommodation, a wave of nostalgia washes over us. Perhaps it's the passage of time or the unavoidable of change, but there's an unmistakable sense of longing for what once was. And then we look into each other's eyes and Leif Erik says, "Why don't we buy a small, simple, run-down house on Ilha Da Culatra?" And I reply, "What a crazy idea. Let's do it." Thank you to all you amazing supporters and subscribers. Your support means the world to us and keeps us going. Join our tribe today for the cost of a coffee each month. Let's build something special together. We're making a mug for each episode of our adventure. Start collecting and be a part of the journey.